How do I write a better project summary for an application for funding for my nonprofit? Today's video, I'm going to go through 3 tips that will help you craft a more compelling project summary. This will increase your chances of getting a grant. My name is Benjamin Dean from grantgetting.com. I hope you enjoyed this video and others on the channel that are aimed at helping you get grants. There's a link in the description with 7 additional tips on top of the 3 that I'm going to cover in this video. Number 1, focus on the impact. So a pre-step to this one would be understanding and having done a logic model. A logic model, if you're not familiar, describes how your project or program goes from the current situation that's happening in your community or in your viewpoint through to the impact that it has on the greater community or the greater society and everything in the middle. Okay, most important relative to this discussion around your project narrative is the delineation between what is an output and what is an outcome. Okay, typically an output are things that we can think about that we can count very easily at the end of the process, so to speak. So your intervention, your activities will be included on a logic model, but how many is typically what we associate with the output. The outcome is what we're really after. We're really after what it means to do what it is that you are doing. So in your project description, the focus should be on the outcome or the impact, not on the output. So the delineation would be if you have a project that is aiming to provide 10,000 meals to your community, then that would be a output. That is something that you can easily count at the end. The more nuanced answer in that particular space would be, what is the effect of doing that upon communities' food insecurity? A 15% reduction in food insecurity will be achieved by this project through these activities, which include distributing 10,000 meals. Okay, that is the first point, and probably if you don't do anything else in your project description, if you just can understand that important delineation and highlight those things that are the changes in behavior, the changes in experience, the changes in knowledge, potentially both on a group or community level as well as an individual level, and speak to those things as you describe what it is that you're doing, you will elevate your application over many, many others. Now, this is not to say that you don't include outputs and you don't include activities, you don't include other things. You certainly do. A project summary, this particular part of the application should be in some ways a summary of the description. So there should be some descriptors, but it should be somewhat higher level. Outputs are still important because they help in many ways to speak to the activities. Outputs do help to speak to the activities. So in this example, if I were going to say I'm going to provide 10,000 meals to my community, well, that tells somebody a lot about you. It says that you have a kitchen, that you're procuring items, that you are cooking the items, and you are packaging those items, and then potentially that you're delivering those items, right? So there's a lot wrapped up in that. But that's not why you're doing what you're doing. You're not providing meals to provide more meals, or at least you shouldn't be. You should be providing meals in order to have some greater outcome in your community, such as reduction of food insecurity. The same can be said for any intervention that you have. There's a counting mechanism, and there's a change in behavior, change in knowledge, change in experience mechanism. Okay. And in this summary, you want to do your best to pull those outcomes out and speak to them. Okay. That's number 1 for project summary. Number 2, be specific and be concise. In many other areas of the application, a strategy that is something to consider would be to push yourself up into that word count to be able to get as much quality information in as you can. Hitting particular keywords, hitting particular points, not being too verbose, but getting close to that word count. When you have a project summary, that's not always the best strategy. This is an overview. Again, thinking about who is reviewing this and how they're reviewing it. Most will have a rubric. Most reviewers will have a rubric. And that rubric is probably not going to have a section that says how compelling was the project summary. The project summary is there, as is several other things, such as the title, is there to help color the rest of the application, okay? To help color multiple parts of the rubric. So you have to remember that you don't necessarily need to get right up to that character count. You just need something that really does the job. Being specific and being concise is more important here than it is in most other sections of the application. I would say that it's sort of the opposite of a budget justification. The budget justification, many times, for whatever reason, does not have character limits. So you are able to really go deep, deep, deep into that area. Lots of detail, not very concise, and broad. You're really going and touching a lot of different things. Here, grant reviewers, you have to remember, have a lot of applications to read. So it's vital to be both specific and concise in this section, which is one of the things that's read first. You do need to strike somewhat of a balance between providing enough detail to make your case without overwhelming the reader with too much information or too much coded information that a layperson may not understand. But you don't need to go into the level of detail that belongs in the full application. Okay, so I say that grant writing is not really an art, but if there is artistic elements of grant writing, this might be one of them, is how much to include and what to include in the summary. Okay, so a good test for this, when you have your full application written, then you write your project summary, is to take that summary to someone who does not know your organization, does not know you, hopefully, but even if they do know you, they don't know the ins and outs of your operation. They don't know what it is that you're applying for money for. So you can bring this to them, someone with some degree of articulability, maybe just say somebody with a college degree. That's typically going to be the type of person that's going to be reviewing these. And ask them to read maybe your project title and then read your project summary. Conversely, you remove the project title and just do the project summary and take their feedback. Ask them what they understand this to be about, what are their impressions of it, and do they have any emotional responses to what it is. Okay, take that feedback in, see if there's miscommunication, and go from there. Okay, that's a great test. That's number 2. Number 3 is then, as you're thinking about your summary, tailoring it to your funder's priorities. This can pretty much be a bullet point on every aspect of every part of every application, but it doesn't get done. I read these applications and I get feedback. I know it is not happening to the degree that it could. So your summary should be tailored in some way to your funder's priorities. Every funder has specific priorities and specific goals. Your project summary should be tailored to align with these. Again, going back to the research, this is the first thing you want to be doing after you've identified a grant opportunity as feasible, is you want to look at what do they care about? What is this organization and the individuals involved in the grant review process? What are they interested in? How are they incentivized? And that's part of the research. So if you understand what they care about and you understand what they are paid to care about, which are sometimes different things, your project will better align with their goals or mission or whatever it is that you're looking at. So that then can be direct statements. That could be clauses in a particular sentence, such as we know your organization, this organization's funding priority is X. And through these outcomes, Y and Z, this project attains X. It's a direct statement. And it's a summary of the whole rest of the application, right? There will be questions typically on a rubric that talk about how well a proposal fits within the funding priorities. That's something to consider because many times there's not a question for that particular point on the grading rubric. So again, imagine that you're a reviewer, you're reading an application, you have a rubric next to it, and you're filling it in as you go. You're changing things as you learn more. That's a very common thing. So if you have access to that rubric, which you can get access to by asking, if you have that, then you're going to be able to cross-reference that against the application and know that there's 3 out of the 12 things on the rubric that do not correlate directly to a question. And so I need to find places in the application to speak directly to that point that I don't want to miss. The project summary is one place where you can do that, where you can speak to one or more of those pieces of points, those guidelines for the reviewer. Okay, so those are the 3 tips. Remember down below to download the free guide, which has 7 additional tips on it relative to this project summary. That's a free download. If you comment below, please focus those comments on something to do with the project summary. Anything that you want a review on, anything that you have questions on, please include it in the comment and I would love to engage there. Thank you so much for jumping into this video and we will see you in the next one.